Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. In this episode, we have the opportunity to speak with Jay Flores. We talk about his decision to venture from a safe engineering job and becoming an entrepreneur. We explore his adventures writing the book Engineer Someday. This has given him much gratification, satisfaction, and support towards the community. We dive into his experiences with Exatlon, Estados Unidos, and American Ninja Warrior. Both of these were not easy to secure. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Let's get started. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Success Innovation. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Jay Flores, who is a mechanical engineer, an entrepreneur, and a passionate STEM advocate. He is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He founded It's Not Magic, It's Science, and also created Invent the Change LLC to inspire and empower the next generation in STEM. He is the author of Engineer Someday and has competed on American Ninja Warrior and Exatlon Estados Unidos. Through his work, Jay continues to champion representation and opportunity in STEM worldwide. Welcome, Jay Flores, to Success Innovation. How are you doing, sir?
Gracias, Lázaro. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here and share some great stuff with your audience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I shared a short bio about you. Is there anything that I might have missed that you might want to share in addition to what was already stated?
I think you nailed it. In a nutshell, I'm just very passionate about inspiring the next generation to see themselves in engineering and to have the tools and resources they need in order to make that possible, if that's a career path they choose they want to go down. And even for those students who don't decide to go down engineering, that they'll at least have that STEM literacy that they can apply to whatever career they want.
Thank you, sir. Along those lines, I always see and hear that we all have core values, and it's true. So I'm assuming that you're not the exception. So I would like for you to share two of your main core values, and how do those core values actually come into play in your everyday life or on your mission?
Okay. Yeah, so I'd say those come down to two main things being familia and impact. So, everything I am today and kind of even how I got into engineering and became the person I am working with kids stems from the impact my family had on myself. So my father was he didn't go to college, but he got into the technical space through his military training. So he was an Apache helicopter mechanic in the US Army. And so that's kind of where I got my technical side. And then my mom was a elementary school psychologist, is what she did. So that's where I get like my empathy working with children, and I kind of merge those two things into everything I do today. But that extends to my tias, mis abuelos, like all the impact that my family had in helping me get to where I am today. Um, and I connecting that with the other core value of impact, initially set out to just be the best role model I could for my siblings and cousins, because I'm the first grandchild on both sides of the family. So I was the first one going through a lot of these paths and this journey. And so it initially started with me just paying that forward to my family and being a good representative, a good role model, and helping them stay on track. But then that expanded and that got into my SHIP family, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And then it grew even beyond that into other organizations that are impacting youth with STEM. And in general, any child that's out there that wants to explore this path, or parents that need resources, that impact is now spreading not just to my immediate family, but my greater familia in STEM.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that insight. Familia being one of your main core values, this organization right here, SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, you brought that up as well. So I want to explore a little more on that. What is this organization to you? How did your path begin? How did you find out about it? And how has it impacted your career and your trajectory so far?
Absolutely. So, like I mentioned, I did have somewhat of a technical connection through my father's work, but again, he didn't study engineering. I hadn't met really any engineers until probably junior year of high school is when I first really started to understand what engineering was. And in that process, I, started to think, okay, maybe I can check this out for college, but I still wasn't very certain. And then eventually, when I did choose engineering, I was fortunate that I got a scholarship that included an internship. So I was doing an internship the summer of my freshman year, and I hadn't gotten involved with SHIP or any other student orgs on campus my freshman year. I was just kind of focused on class and trying to, do the best I could. And I wasn't really aware of all the benefits of getting involved with an organization like SHIP and doing the extracurricular type activities. But that summer, I had a great internship. I had a wonderful manager, and at the end of the internship, he was like, "You did great this summer. You're doing well in your classes. You now have engineering work experience with this internship. The one thing that's missing on your resume is a leadership position." And so when he mentioned that, I went right back to campus and I went to SHIP, and that that fall semester, the only position that was left for leadership position was called presentation chair. And essentially that was someone who would go out and do presentations at local high schools about STEM. So it's wild that just this one position that was available has shaped literally the rest of my career and everywhere I am today. Because if it wasn't for those first couple presentations I did at those high schools, which honestly probably weren't that great, I wouldn't have eventually built the expertise and the comfort and now the actual brands and programs that I have with It's Not Magic, It's Science and Engineer Someday. Those probably wouldn't exist if I wouldn't have gone out and done some of that initial outreach that really opened my eyes to the impact I could have and the impact that organizations like SHIP have all across the country.
Awesome. Thank you. And then you take us over to, you brought up Engineer Someday, which is the book that you actually published and are currently promoting, right? So what actually inspired you to definitely write Engineer Someday? And can you share some perspective of how you wish or how do you see or what you hope this book would do for the young children, but also share some of the surprises that you've discovered which you did not expect?
Absolutely. So the the mission behind Engineer Someday, which is a bilingual STEM children's book, it's geared towards kids that are in the younger ages, so 0 to 8 years old, so early readers, and then also kids being read to by their parents at home. I also have a wonderful illustrator, Nadia Ronquillo, who, even if you can't read, the visuals tell the story very well. And what happens is really it's these characters that are exploring 10 different types of engineering, and it connects it to the way that kids build and play, and also connects it to careers that they're pretty familiar with even at early ages. So, for example, let's see which one I have memorized. So, for chemical engineering, so it's chemical engineers, like a chef, they mix and brew, medicine, fuel, and even shampoo. And then we have it in Spanish on the same illustration. We'll have the English words and the Spanish. So whether you read the book in English or in Spanish, or you can't read yet and you just see the images of the kids playing with this little bubble experiment, I hope that it will spark an interest in kids at an early age and connect that to an actual career in the future. Because one of the inspirations for the book was a picture of myself when I was about 3 years old playing in this little box. And that box to me could be anything. It could be a rocket ship, it could be a castle, it could be a race car. And my mom would tell me stories about how creative I was with things like that. And so the challenge, though, is that even though I had the curiosity of an engineer, I had the creativity of an engineer, I didn't know what an engineer was. So I want kids growing up and being exposed to this book to see, okay, I see myself in these pages, in the way that these children play and build things. So maybe that means I'm this type of engineer, right? Like if they love the imagery of the kids with the bubble experiment in the kitchen, then maybe they'll think I'm a chemical engineer. Or if they like the page where the kids are building a little space shuttle out of cardboard boxes, then maybe they'll think, okay, maybe that means I'm an aerospace engineer. And having 4-year-olds come and tell me like, oh, I want to be biomedical engineer, or I want to be an electrical engineer at that young of an age, and having that connection is priceless, and I hope will make a huge difference in their futures. because regardless of whether they have lots of engineering role models around them, or if they end up in at some point in their trajectory not being in the most inclusive place, they will have already built that STEM identity from such a young age that I hope it'll help them persist and keep going and eventually becoming engineers someday.
Awesome, thank you. Um, how do you hope that this book actually changes the way that young students, and you did touch on this a little bit about visualization, but as they start getting into middle school, a lot of students start losing that imagination and they start falling into the peer pressure and stereotypes. How do you hope that they continue to drive over and to fall in a line into a STEM career?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, let's pick a popular one, right? So a lot of kids say they want to be an astronaut
Right.
someday, right? But none of us at that age, at least I didn't, know what it takes to be an astronaut. And they don't know you don't go to astronaut school necessarily and go and choose astronaut as your declared major. So I had this great experience at one of our book readings in Washington, D.C. recently, where one of the girls asked a question. She's probably in like second grade, and she goes, I want to be an astronaut someday. Which one of these is going to give me the best chance of becoming an astronaut? And so the cool thing was she was already drawing a connection that, hey, these different types of engineering that I'm learning in this book seem like they connect to my dream of becoming an astronaut. And, I took the opportunity to help with that question for any kid in that audience, that different types of engineering really open the door for so many different opportunities, whether that's an astronaut, a traditional engineer, starting your own business, going into like patent law. There's so many different options. Even medical school, engineering degrees are great, undergraduate degrees to then go to medical school. So I kind of started going into each of the degrees, and I was like, well, aerospace seems like the best, maybe because we're talking about space and aircraft, but we need biomedical engineers in space. We need electrical engineers. We even, need environmental engineers in all of these different categories. And so I think the key there is that it's going to help kids stay on track, because now they know at least one of the steps towards their dream, and they have a name for it. They understand how they feel identified and connected to it. And at the very core level, the book shows them that it's the curiosity and the creativity that's the most important. And then the math and the science is what you use as the tool, right? Because a lot of the younger kids are a little bit sometimes, and even adults, have a little bit of that math anxiety or fears or concerns, or that it's too challenging. But if you're curious and you're creative, you can be a great engineer. And then the math and the science is just that tool that helps you get a little bit further with it. So I hope it reduces some of those barriers to entry for a lot of students.
Awesome, thank you. As an advocate to STEM, you've been really involved in FIRST Robotics. And this next coming week, you're going back to the World Champions, right? Or World Championships. How has this path been for you? And this is before you even started writing the book. So I'm assuming a lot of this has a little bit of a behind the story. How did you get involved with FIRST Robotics, and what has this path looked like for you so far?
Yeah, so I started my career at Rockwell Automation in their technical sales program. And one of my mentors, she was in charge of their philanthropy and their corporate social responsibility. And at our automation fair, which was one of the big trade show events every year, they would have a booth dedicated to first robotics competition and first Lego League, where teams would showcase what they were doing in front of all of our employees, customers, distributors, etc. So they're really putting this program out there for everyone to see the impact. And so I didn't really know much about it, but she asked me to come meet her at the booth to check it out. And on my way there, I get kind of stopped by this little 10-year-old girl, and she goes, this is my robot, and its name is Tobor because that's robot spelled backwards. And so immediately she kind of grabbed my attention. I was like, I'm not sure what you're trying to sell me, little girl, but like I'm all ears. Like let's talk about your robot Tobor. And before I even like really get a chance to say much, she goes, and this is its ultrasonic sensor. And an ultrasonic sensor works like a dolphin. It sends out a signal and it listens back. And that's how my robot Tobor navigates the playing field. So, first of all, the confidence she had and everything she was saying. But second, I was like, little 10-year-old girl, did you just say ultrasonic sensor? And I was in Rockwell's sales training program at the time, and I was getting ready to go on my first field assignment where I was actually going to be selling industrial sensors. So this little 10-year-old girl had one, had used it on her robot, and I had only seen them in PowerPoint, right? Like I hadn't even gotten my hands on one yet, and she was at 10 years old, better equipped to go on the sales calls than I was, and so it really helped me realize the power that programs like this have to prepare students for incredible things in STEM and engineering. And I wanted to make sure that every kid could have the opportunity to do something like that. I wanted to connect first more to SHIP and to communities that might not have the same level of mentoring and sponsorship for programs like this, but at least that they increase the awareness and get them started at younger ages so that they can build up into the bigger programs. And but yeah, it was really that 10-year-old girl that sparked the interest, and now she's probably already in college, if not graduated. I wish I knew her name so I could see what she's up to today, but probably very incredible things. And there's tons of kids that I've met throughout the years that now I see them as college students and young professionals, and seeing what they're accomplishing is just so rewarding.
Awesome. So fast forward to the present, from that interaction with that 10-year-old young lady now to being almost a week out before you head back over to an additional supporting role with First Robotics. What has your path and at this point, what is your perspective, and what supplemental information have you learned, or how has your vision morphed in the scope of First Robotics so far?
Yeah, so I think one of the key lessons I've learned from First is that society gets the best of what it celebrates. And as a community, we need to make sure that we're celebrating things like STEM, and we're providing opportunities for young kids to get involved, and we're cheering them on just as hard and exciting as we would a soccer game or a football game, and just really helping kids understand that they can go pro in this sport, they can build a wonderful career, and they can have an impact in the areas that they love. And that can start really early with just and simple with just reading the book, to it could be working with ultrasonic sensors, or even at the high school level where the students are using industrial type materials to build robots that are over 100 pounds and that do very complex tasks, probably even more so than I accomplished in college. So I've just realized that we need to keep celebrating like this. We need to find more and more platforms to elevate STEM and celebrate these kids, and then make sure that we increase access to those opportunities for the kids that might not have as easy entrance to it.
Awesome. Which brings me to Invent the Change LLC and you being an entrepreneur. So you did mention that you were at Rockwell Automation for a couple of years, and that you were literally an ambassador for STEM while you were working with them. But how did you decide to, I'm going to part ways with Rockwell or the industry and focus solely to promoting STEM, being that type of advocate? And that's literally your initial kickoff starting journey as an entrepreneur. And then to decide, I'm going to create, Invent the Change LLC. Can you walk us through that path?
Yeah, so my career at Rockwell was incredible. I got to start in technical sales. I did that for several years, and then eventually went into the role of global STEM ambassador, which is a role that didn't exist prior to me being there. It was just kind of something we built because of the passion I had for STEM outreach, but also the company leadership saw a need to make sure that young people are exposed and connected, so that for example, that 10-year-old girl with the ultrasonic sensor realizes that, hey, we also make these ultrasonic sensors that are used in industrial applications in everything from making cars to cookies to controlling roller coasters. And helping kids see that at a very young age, I think makes it much more likely for them to want to go down that path. And so what I was realizing, not just at Rockwell, but across the industry, is there was a lot more need to get that impact younger and younger. And Rockwell was very visionary in starting that impact young with programs like FIRST, especially in the younger age groups, programs that FIRST provides. But most of the industry is focused more so on like college recruiting and high school outreach, I'd say. They don't really go down as deep into the middle and definitely not as much at the elementary and pre-K levels. And I was realizing that, yeah, I can go into these classrooms and I can speak in front of these crowds and get anybody of any age pretty pumped about science and engineering. But for a lot of kids, uh, sometimes it's too late at that point when you're at the high school level, and either not that they can't ever make it. There's tons of paths to be able to make it towards this industry, but I want to make sure that we're there before they lose any interest in math or science, or before they fall too behind in the math classes, or choose a track that's not best suited to get them ready for the rigor of college math, so that we address the pipeline challenges that we have within STEM at the very beginning, and making sure there's tons of students coming through and that they're resilient and excited about it. And so I wanted to bring my impact younger and younger. And I felt that one of the best ways to do that was to go off on my own and build my own brands and products, and really address that need at the younger ages. And it's just been so much fun, because the energy that the younger kids give is wild. I love it so much. They're so honest and open and excited. And so if you do well, like, they're going to be a great crowd for you. And if you don't, they're going to tell you, yeah, I didn't like that part. So they're a tough customer, but great when you do it well. And so I've been able through those years, including starting at Rockwell in that Global STEM Ambassador role, and with my volunteer work with SHIP as a student and young professional, to be able to start building out what are some of these things that these kids are really gravitating to and what's not really working, and try to kind of massage that out for when I went out into going off on my own. I was able to hit the ground running, and have some of those connections and relationships already required to have success early as an entrepreneur.
Awesome. So there's got to be a story behind Invent the Change. Can you tell us why you chose that particular name and what's the story behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. There definitely is a story. So it comes from the phrase "be the change you want to see in the world." But I figured, if you're a good person, if you become the change you want to see in the world, you can have a significant impact. But oftentimes, most of that individual impact is limited in scope, and then also once you pass, not a lot of that always stays around. There are some people that have a legacy that lives on way beyond their years, but it's not always the case. What I figured is, if we could figure out ways to invent the change, so to create things that make the changes we want to see in the world, then your impact can be much more widespread than just being a good person. You should be both, be a good person and be a good engineer. But the things that you create will live long past your individual impact and reach potentially many more people than other types of impact. So I want all children to be at least equipped with the tools that they need in order to make the changes in the world that they want to see, right? Whether that's curing cancer or sending people to space, or making vehicles that don't pollute as much. Whatever it is that the personal interests of that child, I want them to have the tools to make that happen, and that's where Invent the Change comes from.
Awesome. You did mention that as you were still part of Rockwell Automation, you had made some connections outside that allowed you to jump in full on being yourself an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. Can you walk us back and remember some of the biggest challenges that you actually faced during that transition period, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest challenges is just the unknown. Like was the first entrepreneur in my family, I guess. I don't think we've had any others that are like business owners of that sense. And um, even though I knew some people that had kind of worked for themselves or started their own businesses, I was walking into a very unique entrepreneurship space, right? Like STEM for young kids, right? Very niche and not something that there's a lot of people out there doing full time. And so there was a lot of questions, and sometimes those questions or that uncertainty turn gets disguised as doubt, and you might not want to take that leap right away because you're a little bit concerned with the unknown. But I think my advice for people that might be feeling something similar in whatever entrepreneurship journey they want to go into is just understanding, like, one, are you passionate about it? Is this something that you get excited about and you would want to do all the time? Because that's what I was realizing is, one, I was, even in college and as a young professional, I was always wanting to do impact work and outreach work with SHIP. And then even when I started my professional career at Rockwell, I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I get involved more with FIRST and how do we build this program, to the point where it became my full-time job at the company as global STEM ambassador. And so I started realizing, okay, this is definitely like the type of thing I want to do every day, and I would do even if it was just as a volunteer. And so I knew I was in the right space. I wasn't going off to build a business just to make money, or because I wanted to be my own boss. It was because I wanted to make an impact, going back to my core values, in a particular space that I thought I had built some good skill sets and expertise. The other thing I would say is just, if you're starting to feel that, okay, I think I know where I want to go, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm ready yet, find nonprofits and organizations that you can volunteer for and do similar work potentially to the space that you want to go into. And that's what helps you as a volunteer, again, build out some of those skills, and at the same time give back to those organizations that need support, need volunteers. So that helped kind of ease some of those doubts and challenges. And then from there, or then on, it's just making sure that you're always networking and building relationships and continuing to put your work out there and help drive those conversations of, how what you're bringing to the table can bring impact to other organizations that you might want to be collaborating with. And that's been through social media, it's been through conferences, obviously through SHIP National Convention, and through relationships and friendships, and just making sure that you're continuing to put that out there, especially if you have something that you think is going to make an impact on the world.
Awesome. How do you actually define success for what you're doing at this point, comparing it to when you first actually started your entrepreneurial journey?
So what I love about what's going on now is I have something that's lasting beyond me, right? So the book will always be available on Amazon, right? And so no matter what I do next, that impact will always be there. There's going to be a kid that someday just goes to the library and sees, that book looks interesting, and whether they have any clue who I am, or even if I'm not alive anymore, like, that impact will be there, and it can be amplified through many other people. That's the other thing, is that when I first started my business, it was just me. It was my brand and my voice and my expertise. Now with Engineer Someday, whether you're just a parent or an abuela that wants to read to their grandkids and their children, you now have the resource to empower your kid, whether I'm there or not. Same with our science kits. It's cool for kids to watch me do experiments on social media, but it's even more powerful for them if they go out and they try the experiments themselves and they prove to themselves that, hey, I can be a scientist, I can be an engineer, especially if they're having fun doing it. So these products that I've created now later in my business are going to be that ripple effect beyond just me giving a keynote or showing up at a conference, or things that are still great and impactful, but are not as amplified as these other products are. So I hope people will really just leverage Engineer Someday and the other tools that we'll be building as part of the brand to go out there into the community. And you don't have to be you don't have to be an engineer at all. You just have to be able to read either English or Spanish, and you'll be able to go out there and make an impact that could inspire a future engineer.
And on top of that, I mean, you do in person readings, but you also had a little bit of putting your feet into the water of television and this. I believe it was the Discover and or PBS episode. Can you share some of that information and some of those experiences that you went through?
Yeah, so one of the things I realized along my journey is going back to that quote, society gets the best of what it celebrates, is that we are really a country that celebrates sports and entertainment. And initially, a lot of organizations will say, oh, well, we need to celebrate STEM instead of sports or STEM instead of Hollywood. But I realize it's better to find the stem behind those things that the country already celebrates versus just saying no, like you should be an engineer instead of your dream of becoming whatever other thing they're excited about. As I want kids to go after whatever they're naturally curious and excited about, but I want them to go after that knowing the stem behind that space, right? So let's say they want to be a professional football player. Okay, well, let's also learn a little bit about the science behind the game, whether that's concussion technology with helmets, whether that's designing shoes for Nike, whatever it is that you're passionate about. So that way you can forever have a career in the thing that you're excited about, whether you actually become a professional athlete or whether you become an engineer that's impacting that sport. Or maybe you do both. Maybe you go play college ball and then after you decide, actually I want to work on the technology side of this business. And that allows people to have longevity in the thing that they love. And so I decided like how can I bring more attention to the science behind all kinds of things? And social media is obviously one of those big ones that helps, but let me show up in places where people aren't expecting me to be. So now when I go and I do an American Ninja Warrior course, but I show up and I do an experiment first on the start line, I'm bringing science to an audience that wasn't necessarily looking for it. Because one of the things that a lot of organizations I think struggle with or fail at is a lot of times they end up just preaching to the choir, right? You're just working with the children of your members who are probably already exposed to it already. It's like, how do we find the kid that didn't want anything to do with science, just wanted to watch an obstacle TV show, and then all of a sudden saw, wow, that experiment was kind of cool, and this guy does Ninja Warrior like I want to do. Let me look into that science side of it as well, right? And so whether it's Ninja Warrior or Exatlon Estados Unidos on Telemundo, or even the Make 48 show that I did on PBS, which was more STEM focused and related, whatever it is that I'm out there, I'm always trying to bring STEM to that bigger platform to reach more kids that weren't already looking for it, but then might be a little bit excited after they've seen it.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So you brought up Exatlon, Estados Unidos, and American Ninja Warrior, right? And those are the two big sporting competitive events that you've been part of as part of broad television. How did you, and which one came first, Exatlon, Estados Unidos, or American Ninja Warrior? And how was your process? Because when we see it, we're like, oh, he made it. He probably just sent in the application, showed up. They called Jay Flores, come on over. So can you walk us through that process? And how many times did you actually have to apply to one or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was just, hey, come on over. And this is actually a huge battle of resilience for me. And I think being an engineer helps teach you that, and vice versa. I think sports are great for kids to become better engineers too, because it teaches you to not give up, it teaches you leadership and resilience, etc. But essentially, I ran track and cross country in high school, and I chose the better engineering school versus the school that I could run at. So I made the right decision, and I went to the University of Wisconsin versus the other places where I may have gotten an offer to run, but I wouldn't have had as strong of an engineering program. But during that period, I missed the competitive aspect. I was a captain on the cross country and track teams. We were, won conference a bunch of times, all that kind of stuff. So it was really a big part of my life and who I was. And so I missed that during college. But once I graduated and I moved to Florida, one of the chapters that I was connected to through SHIP was at the University of Central Florida, and they were going to do one of those mud runs with obstacles as an outreach, or no, sorry, not outreach, as a kind of chapter building activity. So I joined them, and I just got hooked on obstacle course racing like that. I found my competitive spirit again and started doing that. And that's more like long distance running with some obstacles. It wasn't as intense as Ninja Warrior, but then I started seeing Ninja Warrior. It's like, oh, now that I love this kind of running and obstacles, maybe I should try out Ninja. And in a nutshell, in a period of 10 years, I applied in a wide variety of ways. I tried to walk on, where you basically show up and sleep, camp out, and try to just be there. And they have some people that run as walk-ons, but it's not guaranteed, and you have to be there early. And I never was able to walk on. They had a lottery system one year, and I didn't make it in the lottery. And I traveled to different cities to try to do it, didn't get it. I submitted applications, and I got rejected. It was 9 seasons of rejection before I finally got the call on the 10th season. Um, Circling back a little bit in between there, though, is Exatlon called a few years into that journey. And actually, the first season, I actually said no because I thought it was going to be a show similar to like a lot of drama and not so positive. And I wanted to keep my brand and who I am very family friendly. Um, but then I eventually did go on once I saw that everything was great, and I got on Exatlon, and that was another tough journey, maybe for another question. But that taught me a lot about the TV behind the scenes and what producers are looking for and how I should shape my application, not just as an athlete, but as telling a story. And that's what then I think made the switch to that 10th application finally being the one that was accepted, because I focused more on who I was and what my story was and what my impact could be versus, hey, here's me doing some obstacles that are similar to what you're doing on your show. And so no matter whether it's you wanting to get on TV or building a business or interviewing, I think the key lesson in that 10 years journey is, one, don't give up on things that you're truly passionate about. And two, uh, learn how to tell your story well and in different formats, and in on video and in elevator pitches and in interviews, and just learning about who you are and what drives you, and how do you translate that to the organization you're trying to work with or the people you want to engage with. That's what really, I think, sold it and got me the opportunity. And the best blessing in disguise, the fact that I didn't get it that first time, is I probably wouldn't have been ready to do well that first season. But since I didn't give up, I had 9 seasons of training under my belt of becoming a better, stronger athlete. And so when I did get the opportunity, one, I had something to showcase. I had my story to tell with It's Not Magic, It's Science and experiments. Two, I did very well. And so as a rookie, I was able to get to semifinals. I got the call back to go another season, and I made it to semifinals again. And then my third season is airing this June. The season airs June 8th. I'm not sure which week my episode will be yet, but stay tuned over the summer and you'll see some more experiments. You might see the book and also some cool obstacles.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So overall, 9 seasons of rejection, resilience, right? That's one of the ship core values, to be resilient, continue moving forward, and have a focus of what you really want, and never to give up, essentially. So that's really insightful. And knowing that Exatlon came first, and also being true to yourself, right? Not necessarily just going for the money or the fame or being on TV, but saying, hey, Exatlon might not necessarily be the show that I want for my brand. That was a conscientious decision. So how difficult at that time, when Exatlon called and you are getting rejected by American Ninja Warrior, you're probably saying, man, they really want me, but I have to take a step back, think about this, not just jump head on. How was that process for you during that particular phase?
Yeah, it's tough because it's a great opportunity, right? The TV, the potential fame, the money, those kinds of things are very enticing to people, especially in this world of social media and wanting to hop on whatever's viral. But I needed in that moment and at all times to, take that big picture view of my brand and the impact I want to have and decide, is this or that opportunity best for the impact I can have? And that happened again recently. So if you look at my seasons of Ninja Warrior, there's some gaps in between. Even after I got the 9 years of rejection, I got the call. There's some gaps in between because I took an opportunity to go on Are You Smarter Than a Celebrity on another network. But that was a spin off of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? So it was an educational TV show. I felt it was going to help me reach a market in a different way and again help showcase the value and the power of my brain, not just the my abilities
LeBron.
as an athlete. Yeah, not just the brawn. Exactly. So that in that case, that was tough too because I knew it was a different network and I wasn't going to be able to do that next season of Ninja Warrior and they might not ever call me again. That's one of the hardest pressures of this show is you can do well, you can have a great story, but you got to apply again every year and they might like another story better than yours, but you just got to stay true to yourself, keep building the impact, and that's going to get noticed and sometimes it's going to feel like it's not growing fast enough, but as long as you keep consistent, you keep persevering, you keep pushing along, eventually you reach that tipping point where you've built something that's powerful enough that those brands or connections or opportunities are going to come your way. And so, fortunately, Exatlon ended up being a pretty family friendly show. It was more focused on the competition than the drama. And so I did still get the opportunity and that taught me a lot for Ninja Warrior. So it all worked out in its due time. But even then, you still need to make sure, like, I'm on this show and there's certain things that might help me get further, but more importantly, I need to like keep my integrity. I need to set a good example and just, be proud of what little kids looking up to me would think of versus how far I got or whether I won or anything along those lines or how much money I won, right? It's really about winning the hearts of the audience and the families and the kids so that you can have that bigger lasting impact after the show's over.
Yeah. And this brings us back, full circle to you being an engineer, to you creating engineering someday, writing it, publishing it, and inventing the Change LLC, right? I mean, that's resilience, perseverance, and also, just that integrity and the core values that hold you together. Not necessarily following the money. So for the audience, if you as a student, college student, high school student are considering, I really want to pursue a career just because of the money, take a step back, really think about it because you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. And if it's just for the money, as we've heard, it's not necessarily going to make you happy.
Yeah.
As we heard from Jay, even if he didn't get paid to do this, that what he's doing, promoting STEM, being an advocate for STEM, he would still do it as a volunteer position. So find something that you're truly passionate about and follow that. Everything we've heard so far, even going to Exatlon, American Ninja Warrior, writing, engineering someday, it's a passion that he has. So everybody should follow their passion. I'm not saying that you should go and do an entrepreneurial work and be your own boss. But if you like building switches, if you like working in the DoD department and making sure that the everyday planes are able to keep transporting people from one place to another, if you want to bring the warriors from the war front back home safely, then go ahead and focus on that. But stay true to yourself. Don't just follow the money. Don't necessarily just go and pursue that scholarship through sport if your passion is not necessarily laid on that. So just that's a little, parentheses that I wanted to make there. So awesome, great story there about the Exatlon and American Ninja Warrior. Is there anything else that you want to share that maybe you haven't had too many opportunities to share about writing the engineer someday and or working at Invent the Change LLC by yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I wrote it, right? I'm the author, Nadia is the illustrator, but this is a book for everyone. Like I really want this to be a tool for everyone to leverage in their outreach, whether that's with your family and friends of your family, or as a volunteer going to schools, or out as part of your student chapter or professional chapter if you're part of organizations like SHIP or NSBE or SWE, etc. It's not, again, it's a thing that's not about me. It's about providing the tools and resources that anyone could use to inspire. And you don't have to be a ninja warrior or an Exatlon athlete to inspire, right? Like what I've realized in all of my journeys is that a lot of the times it's after the show when I'm handing out the books and stuff, sometimes I get these random hugs from the little kids, and it's the best. Like that is the best part of this entire journey because that hug shows me not only are they like excited about science or whatever we did that day, but it just shows me that they needed someone to show up for them that day and they felt represented and heard. And I think that's something that's extremely powerful. And that doesn't have to be me. That can be anyone from, going back to the schools you graduated from and the communities you lived in, or even if you've moved somewhere else, just going back to communities with similar backgrounds to you that might not always have those role models showing up for them. Just show up and read, or show up and do an experiment, or provide the resources for teachers to be able to do it if you don't feel comfortable. It just know that there's a lot of kids out there that need a positive message, and it doesn't take a ton of work in order to make it happen. And with Invent the Change and all my brands, I'm trying to make that even easier for everyone to do. So again, as long as you can read English or Spanish and you can get in front of an audience of, I'd say, pre-K to third graders, Engineer Someday is a great tool. And then I've got tons of other videos and experiments that you guys can leverage to go there, and have that bigger impact. And so I just would add my website, jfloresinspires.com. You can get science videos, you can get information on the book, on the science kits, all kinds of stuff that you would need, whether you have budget or you don't.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Great insight. We move on to the next phase of the interview. It's called rapid fire. So for this one, short answers are great. So good leaders always create good leaders. Do you have any individuals you actually look up to? Who are your mentors?
Yeah. So one of my first mentors in SHIP was Fernando Rosario. He was the first person I saw that really captured the energy of a room. And I essentially said, like, that's the kind of impact I want to be able to have when I walk in a room someday. And so I went to every single one of his workshops I could. I sat in the front row every single time until eventually became a mentee of his, and, a friend and peer. And he's had a huge impact on my life.
And you're still in contact with them, I'm assuming, right?
Mhm.
Awesome. What's the one question that you wish people would ask you more, but seldomly do?
How can I help, I guess. But not in the sense of like how can I help you, Jay, but like how can I help others. So again, just same with the book. A lot of times people will say, oh, you're doing such great, awesome stuff. I wish I could be like that. I was like, you can just go read it. And you can have that impact too. So like how can I help other people in the way I am? And sometimes, like I said earlier, that's just showing up.
Right? Just showing up. That's the main purpose, right? Not trying to be Jay, not trying to be anybody else, but that individual. Trying to be
Yeah.
myself,
Tell
going
your
there
story.
and helping and tell my story and share my personal story and making sure that others see me and that I can help and support in that way. That's awesome. Being in the age of Marvel superheroes, what do you believe your superpower to be?
That's a good one. Um, my empathy is coming to mind,
Yeah.
and it doesn't sound like a superpower, but I think it's really important to be able to put yourself in the shoes of others, Because in the end, superheroes just solve problems, right? And I think engineers are superheroes. Engineers are superheroes that solve different kinds of problems. Superheroes solve the problems of crime or, aliens or whatever the challenge may be. But in the end, you're doing something, you're putting yourselves in the shoes of others to help them with what they need. And so whether that's as an engineer, volunteer, or doing outreach, just understanding where these kids are coming from and how you can best help them.
Awesome. So empathy is your superpower. That's great. Any particular book, movie, or podcast that you believe has made an impact in your life and you wish more people would actually take advantage of it?
Yeah, that one's easy. So my wife and I adopted our son a couple years ago when he was 12 years old is when we finalized the adoption. He's 14 now. And the movie Big Daddy by Adam Sandler is a
Right.
movie, one that is hilarious, at least to me when I was growing up. I thought it was so funny, but I never realized how much of an impact it had on, the fact that Adam Sandler kind of took in and semi-adopted the child in the movie without spoiling too much. I won't say exactly what happens, but it really taught the power of, again, just being that person that someone could need. And I hope more people will consider adoption or foster care or just supporting youth in general. And so that movie again, one is really funny, so you should
Yeah.
watch it from that perspective. But two, it taught me the power of that, and subconsciously, I think set myself. And then when I met my wife, she had similar values in that space of wanting to adopt, and he happens to be Hispanic as well, so we're able to bring our culture and values and help him connect with his roots.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So a little parenthesis there on Big Daddy. Adam Sandler, when he starts off, he's a certain way, and all of a sudden, when he adopts or semi-adopts the child, he starts changing because
Hmm.
he's becoming more of this role model, and his actions actually are reflected in what the child is doing at the beginning of the movie. And there's some funny portions of it, but as the movie
Hmm.
progresses, you do start seeing this mental shift in Adam Sandler's mindset and way that he's seeing the world so that he's trying to set a better example for the child. So that being said, has that kind of happened to you and your wife there, Jay?
Yeah, and well, one, I think it started being the oldest of all my siblings and cousins, right? So I started that early, right? Understanding similar. Unfortunately, there's a decent amount of missing fathers or in my family slash divorce, etc. Whereas I wanted to step in early as a positive male figure for my cousins, and that's what elevated me. And same once I got into ship, now I have this whole familia of not just my immediate family, but I wanted to elevate myself so that I could elevate others. And that has been really my fuel since the beginning, whether it was my siblings and cousins to the general community to the ship familia, etc. Is like, how do I keep growing so I can set better and better examples to open more and more doors for all the kids that come after me? And then yes, once we started the adoption process, that's like a even put that on steroids level of like, how do you become the best example? And it's very difficult, especially the path we took with an older child that you know they're not going to trust you right away, and you're going to get a lot of negative feelings and words and stuff that it's really difficult when you're trying to pour your whole heart into someone. You don't always get that right away, but as we've strengthened our family and he's doing much better now and everything. And it's just like, it's extremely rewarding on that front. And to see how he's grown and all the potential he has is pretty awesome and priceless and has made us better people.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, and congratulations to you and your family there. At this point, from where you're started to now, right now, I'm assuming your definition of success has changed. Can you tell us what your current definition of success is at
Hmm.
your personal level, family level as well?
Yeah. So I think one of the best things you can be is the person you needed as a child, right? all of us are going to have struggles. Life, even as you have success, you find bigger and bigger challenges to get yourself into. So we're always going to have certain challenges. But for children, I think a lot of times those challenges are unnecessary or unwarranted, right? Sometimes it's just because of the circumstances you grow up in. Sometimes it's because discrimination. Like there's a wide variety of things that kids might face that aren't their fault. It's the systems that the adults put in before them, right? And so if we all could just do a couple of the things that we wish would have been done for us when we were younger, like that next generation can be that much more prepared, resilient, confident, and I think we'll see like a better world in that next generation. And again, it's not like you have to have the secret that changes the world. It's just like what are a couple of those things that would have made it a little better for you that you can make a little bit better for someone else. And if everyone does that, we'll be a much better place.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that insight. Now, I want you to close your eyes and we're going to travel back in time. We're going to travel back in time and you're in front of this door to the house where you actually were 3 or 4 years old. You open the door and you see little Jay Flores in this box at the age of 3 or 4 years old in the living room, right? He's having a grand old time. He's laughing his head off. And all of a sudden he looks at you and you say, "Hey, little Jay, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to share 3 pieces of advice. Can you open your eyes and tell us what those 3 pieces of advice would be?"
Wow, yeah, that's one. Thank you for putting me through that little journey because I think that's special, and I think it's something that everybody should do. And kind of going back to my last response with being the person you needed, but honestly, I kind of get to do that right now because I have all of our nieces and nephews just came at once. We have like 3 2-year olds right now in different parts of the world, and I don't get to see them all the time. But when I do, I try to pour some of those things into them. And so, kind of living, I went and visited my sister recently, and I got to go through those moments with my little nephew. He's like 1.5. And so I think what I would say is stay curious, right? So keep playing in that box, keep exploring things, because I think curiosity is the key to all kinds of success, whether that's happiness or career selection. Just being curious and having something to explore makes a big difference. I would say I believe in you. So I think one of the best things my parents did for me is instill a level of confidence. So whenever I was playing in that box or turning the couch cushions into an airplane, I didn't get in trouble. They would like celebrate my curiosity and my playing around. And, eventually I would have to clean it up, but they wouldn't just yell at me and say, "Hey, go put that back where it goes." They let me explore and experiment. So that, and then, so I had stay curious, I believe in you, and then I love you, I think would be the last one. It's just like knowing that people care about you and that you're important, I think is really important for young people. I try to say it more to my friends now too, even as adults, not just my family, but friends. And I think if you feel loved, if you feel like you have potential, and you stay curious, you can get through anything, whether you get 9 rejections or 10 or more, no matter what roadblocks come away. As long as you have those 3 things, I think you're going to be okay. And you eventually find your way to something that you can be proud of and that you can have an impact with.
Awesome. So stay curious, believe in yourself, and hearing the "I love you." That those are great, great things. Thank you, Jay. I want to acknowledge you for your trajectory so far and also acknowledge you for the rest of your future that's remaining. You're going to do great things. You're going to continue motivating people and keep that, invent the change going for a long, long period of time. Thank you for everything you've done congratulations on being a great human being, for participating in Exatlon, for doing American Ninja Warrior and bringing STEM to the forefront of mainstream TV and sports TV in that sense. Thank you for being such a great dad. Thank you for being such a great father and husband in your family. So with that, I want to say thank you for also doing this episode with me. Really appreciate it. Learned a lot about you. I hope that this interview is beneficial for our audience. For those who listen and want to connect with Jay Flores, you can definitely reach him at his LinkedIn or personal website and ask him any questions offline if you need to. With that, thank you and have a good one. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this fantastic conversation. Please help by sharing and inviting others to hear the episode. See you next time. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.